When your partner pulls away just as you're getting closer, do you actually know what they're trying to say? Yes, it seems like they just need space, like they had a rough day or they're dealing with something on their own. But behind that sudden distance, there's something deeper that most people in relationships completely miss. That withdrawal is one of the most emotionally loaded things a partner can do. And if you misunderstand it, which most couples do, you could be feeding a cycle that slowly drains both of you without either person ever realizing what's happening. This isn't just about someone needing alone time. This is the anxious avoidant trap. It's the most common toxic relationship pattern that exists, and it hides in plain sight because from the outside, it just looks like two people who can't quite figure each other out. Today, we're going to decode the 6 signs that you're already caught in it. And once you see these signs, you will never look at your relationship the same way again. So why does your partner keep pulling away the moment things start to feel good between you? Most people assume it's simple. They're tired. They need alone time. They're just not that emotionally expressive. Maybe they grew up in a household where people didn't talk about feelings. End of story. But here's the thing. If it were really just about needing space, they wouldn't wait until after a moment of closeness to take it. They wouldn't pull back right after a deep conversation, right after you said something vulnerable, right after things finally felt safe between you. That timing is not random. It's a signal. So why do they keep doing this, specifically with you? Because closeness itself is the trigger. In attachment theory, researcher Amir Levine explains that people with avoidant attachment styles carry a deeply wired response to intimacy. The closer they feel to someone, the more their nervous system sounds an internal alarm. Not because they don't love you, but because love, to their subconscious mind, feels like a threat. It's not that they don't want to be close. It's that something deep inside them associates closeness with loss, with pain, with a kind of vulnerability they learned long ago was unsafe. And by the way, if your partner used to be warm and open in the beginning, if they used to text you first and plan dates and seemed genuinely excited to be with you, and that warmth has slowly faded over time, don't brush that off. We'll get into what that reversal really means at the end, and it's something most people wish they'd understood before it was too late. Have you ever noticed a shift in your partner's energy right after a moment of real connection? Maybe they go quiet after a really good date. Maybe they pick a small, unnecessary fight the morning after you spent a peaceful night together. Maybe they suddenly get busy with something that didn't seem important 5 minutes ago. Or maybe they reach for their phone and disappear into scrolling, right when you thought you were having a moment. That's not random, it's protective. Here's what most people in relationships don't realize. When your partner pulls away after closeness, they're not rejecting you. They're protecting themselves. In psychology, this is called a deactivating strategy. It's an unconscious mechanism where the brain shuts down emotional openness to avoid the vulnerability that comes with being truly seen by another person. It's not a choice they're making. It's a reflex. One that was shaped years, sometimes decades, before you ever entered their life. Think of it like an emotional thermostat. When the warmth between you rises past a certain point, their internal system kicks in to cool things down, not because the warmth is bad, but because somewhere in their history, that kind of warmth came with a cost. Maybe it came with abandonment. Maybe it came with someone who used their vulnerability against them. Maybe it came from a parent who was loving one day and emotionally absent the next. Whatever the origin, the pattern is the same. The closer you get, the further they pull. And this is also why you might feel like you're always the one reaching. Like no matter how much love you pour into this relationship, it never quite lands the way you hoped. That gap you feel between you isn't emptiness. It's a wall, one your partner built long before they ever met you, and they may not even know it's there. Ever wonder why this push and pull dynamic shows up in some relationships and not others? Maybe it's the couple who can't stop breaking up and getting back together. Every few months, the same explosion, the same tearful reunion, the same promise that this time will be different. Maybe it's the partner who says they want commitment but panics every time the relationship takes a real step forward, moving in together, meeting the family, talking about the future. Maybe it's the relationship that looks completely fine to everyone on the outside, but feels like an emotional roller coaster behind closed doors. That pattern isn't random. It's deeply rooted in how both partners learn to love. Gottman's research on thousands of couples found that many relationships fall into what he calls the pursuer-distancer dynamic. One partner moves closer, seeking reassurance, connection, and confirmation that the bond is solid. The other partner moves away, seeking space, independence, and emotional safety. And the harder one pursues, the faster the other distances. It becomes a loop that feeds itself. Each person's reaction makes perfect sense to them individually, but it triggers exactly the wrong response in the other. Watch how this plays out in real life. If your partner shuts down during emotional conversations, they're not being cold, they're overwhelmed, their system is flooded, and the only way they know to survive it is to go numb. If they respond to your need for closeness by suddenly becoming critical or irritable, they're not annoyed with you. They're trying to manufacture distance because the intimacy feels like too much pressure. If they say, "I just need space," right after you express something vulnerable, they're not punishing you. They're retreating to the only emotional address that feels safe, which is away from the intensity. This is the anxious avoidant trap. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And hey, if this is making you see your relationship differently right now, hit that like button and subscribe. It's the best way to help us reach more people who actually care about understanding what's really happening in their relationships. Now, the anxious avoidant trap doesn't look the same in every relationship. It wears different masks, and each version reveals something completely different about what's happening beneath the surface. The first version is the silent treatment cycle. This is probably the most common and the most painful form. After a disagreement, or sometimes after no disagreement at all, your partner goes quiet. Not for a few minutes, for hours, sometimes days. And during that silence, you're left spinning, replaying every word you said, analyzing every text, wondering what you did wrong. That silence isn't punishment, even though it feels exactly like it. It's emotional flooding. Your partner's internal system got overwhelmed, and the only way they know how to regulate is to shut everything out, including you. The second version is the smothering cycle. This one comes from the anxious side of the trap. You feel the distance growing, so you try harder. You text more. You ask more questions. You look for reassurance in every word they say or don't say. You replay their tone of voice in your head, searching for proof that things are okay. And the more you reach for them, the more they retreat. You're not being needy. You're responding to a real emotional signal that something is shifting. But your response, which is to move closer, triggers their response, which is to move further away. And so the cycle spins. The third version is the criticism spiral. Instead of silence or pursuit, the tension leaks out as picking each other apart. Small complaints that don't match the size of the emotional reaction behind them. Arguments about dishes or schedules that are really about feeling unseen, unheard, or emotionally abandoned. Criticism that is actually a distorted way of saying, "I need you to notice me. I need you to show me I still matter." Gottman identified criticism as one of the 4 major predictors of relationship breakdown. But in the anxious avoidant trap, the criticism isn't really about the content of the argument. It's about the emotional canyon both partners feel, but neither one can name. And then there's the fourth version, the sudden exit. This is the one most people never see coming, because it doesn't look like a problem. It looks like peace. One partner stops fighting. They stop bringing things up. They seem calm, maybe even happier than before. But underneath that calm, they've already begun to emotionally leave. They haven't resolved anything. They've just stopped trying. They've accepted the distance as the relationship itself. And by the time the other partner notices the silence for what it really is, there's a canyon between them that feels impossible to cross. That's the version most people never see coming, because it wears the face of everything being fine. Have you ever noticed that you start walking on eggshells around your partner, that you choose your words more carefully than you used to, that you hold back what you really feel because you're afraid of how they'll react, that you've started monitoring their mood the moment they walk through the door just to decide whether it's safe to say anything real? That's not a coincidence. It's an emotional shift that the dynamic between you created. In relationship psychology, this is called hypervigilance. It's a state where your nervous system is constantly scanning for danger signals in your partner's behavior. A slight change in their tone, a delay in their text response, a look on their face that might mean they're about to pull away again. You're not paranoid, you're adapted. Your brain has learned the rhythm of this cycle, and now it's always watching for the next withdrawal before it even begins. Researchers studying couples in anxious-avoidant dynamics found that over time, the anxious partner begins to reshape their entire personality around the avoidant partner's comfort level. They become smaller, quieter, more accommodating. They stop expressing needs because every time they did, it seemed to push their partner further away. They learn that the safest version of themselves, the one least likely to trigger a withdrawal, is the version that asks for nothing, that swallows frustration, that smiles when they want to scream. Think about that for a second. Your entire way of showing up in this relationship, the way you speak, the things you say and don't say, how much of yourself you reveal, has been quietly reshaped by a pattern you didn't even know was running. And that's not weakness. That's what love does when it's caught in a loop it doesn't know how to escape. Ever had a week where something was weighing on you, maybe stress from work, maybe a quiet doubt about where things were headed, and your partner's behavior shifted before you even said a single word about it? That's not a coincidence. They felt it before you spoke. Partners who have been together long enough develop an emotional radar for each other. They pick up on signals you don't even realize you're sending. A slight change in your texting pattern, the way you pause a half-second longer before answering a question, how close you sit on the couch compared to last Tuesday, whether you reach for their hand or keep yours folded in your lap. These tiny shifts in behavior carry emotional information that your partner's subconscious reads like a language, and they're responding to it even when neither of you can name what just happened. Esther Perel describes this as the invisible conversation that runs underneath every relationship, the one that happens not in words, but in energy, timing, presence, and absence. And here's where it gets even deeper. When your partner pulls away or becomes critical or goes quiet after what seemed like a perfectly normal evening, they might not be reacting to something you said. They might be reacting to something you felt, a flicker of doubt you barely noticed in yourself, a moment of emotional withdrawal so brief you didn't even register it consciously. But they did. Their radar caught it. And their system responded the only way it knows how. They're not just responding to you. They're responding to the version of you that you don't even know you're showing. And that invisible version is shaping the relationship just as much as anything either of you says out loud. So what does it mean when a partner who has been emotionally distant for weeks, maybe months, suddenly comes back? Suddenly becomes warm, attentive, open, present in a way they haven't been in a long time. This is what I mentioned earlier, and it's something everyone in a relationship needs to understand. If your partner has been caught in the avoidance side of this trap, withdrawing, going quiet, creating emotional distance, and then one day reverses course, don't just feel relieved. Pay attention. Because people in relationships are creatures of pattern. And when they break a pattern this significant, something real has shifted underneath. Sometimes the reason is emotional growth. They've processed something internally, maybe through their own quiet reflection, maybe through a conversation that shook something loose in them, maybe through the slow and terrifying realization that they are about to lose something that genuinely matters. And they're reaching back toward you because they're finally ready to try a different way of being close. That kind of return is rare, but it's real. And it usually comes with something you can feel, a softness that wasn't there before, a willingness to stay in uncomfortable conversations instead of running from them. Other times, it's need-based. Something has changed in their external world: stress, fear, loneliness, loss. And the distance they once craved now feels unbearable. So they come back. Not because the internal pattern has changed, but because they need something from you right now. Reassurance, comfort, a sense of stability they can't create on their own. And once that need is met and the crisis passes, the old distance quietly returns. Not because they don't care, but because the pattern was never broken. It was only paused, and sometimes it's cyclical. A rhythm of withdrawal and return that keeps both partners perpetually off balance. Amir Levine's work on attachment describes this as the push-pull loop that anxious avoidant couples can repeat for years, sometimes decades, without ever truly resolving it. The avoidant partner leaves, feels safe enough in the distance to finally miss the connection, comes back, gets close, feels the old alarm rise again, and pulls away, over and over, not out of cruelty, out of a pattern so deep it feels like the only way they know how to love. The key isn't to judge the return. The key is to understand what kind of return it is, because understanding the pattern is the first step toward changing it. Because that distance your partner kept creating, it was never just a habit. It was a conversation they were having with you in the only language they knew how to use. And now, you understand what they were saying.